Hi, and welcome to another video review. Let's get started. Here is the reference, and here is the model. So, let's start at the top. The first thing I notice is that you made the cups here at the top more like bowls, whereas in the reference they look a little bit more like flattened discs. So I would just create a sphere and flatten this out this way. But beyond that, I think you've done a pretty good job at placing them at an angle. They might be a little too exaggerated versus the reference. So let's see. I'm going to delete those. The first thing is I want to make sure that it is perfectly aligned with the cylinder, which it should be by default, since all I did is just pull on the y-axis with the arrow when I started. So if I look at the reference, the first one is straight, the second one is crooked on both angles, and then the third one is crooked again on both angles but opposite. So there you go. And secondly, the cover here, so the little hat part here, if I try to move it up, I'm noticing that the pivot is up there. So if you want to bring it back to the center, what you can do is go to Modify, Center Pivot. Right. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. And by the way, I'm alternating between my Move, Rotate, and Scale with the keyboard shortcuts W, E, and R. Next, I'm going to go to Edge Mode. I'm going to select the edge loop here, and I'm going to click Extrude, which is the button up here, just to be able to close it in. Right. And then I'll try and make it close to the rocket, but just a little bit, so at least I have a little thickness there. Here we go. Now if I look at this, the entire antenna object is actually bigger in your rocket than it is from the reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of this, and I'm going to use the Combine tool up here. And then I'm just going to scale it down. Next, I'm going to go check out your window. So your window looks good. The frame though on the reference seems to be rounded. So I'm just going to delete yours here, and I'm going to start with the torus. I'm going to create this, bring it upwards, and if you press Ctrl A to go into your channel box layer editor, or you can click this icon up here to access it, you'll be able to click Polytorus 1 under the inputs, which will allow you to adjust some of its settings. So I'm going to go to section radius, and with the middle mouse click, I'm going to drag just to make it a little smaller. I might have to adjust it again once I place it around the window, but at least I'm going to start with this here. And I'm going to scale it out just a little bit more, and then upwards a little bit, and this should be pretty close. I will drop the radius again, maybe 1.15 I mean, and scale it outwards. Still a little big. I'll try 0.1, maybe 0.08. Okay, this is looking a little bit better here. I'm going to scale it in, move it up, and I'm really concentrating on making sure that the top and bottom section are even, and I'll take care of the sides afterwards. Alright, I think this is looking good. Good, so once you have that, you can go into your deform lattice. I'll drop the T divisions to 2, which I don't, because I don't need more. With the S divisions, I'll leave at 2. U divisions, I'll go to 5. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to 7 this time, since it is a pretty big window and I want to make sure that it hugs it properly. So I'm going to start by selecting marquee selection, right? So you click outside, marquee select, then hold down Shift, marquee select the next part, and then you can move everything inwards a little bit. So I'm making sure that it's not too steep from this lattice point to this one here. Then I'm going to unselect these and move it in a little bit more. And then I'm going to move the rest of the frame in. And now if I look around, it should be pretty close all over the place. Alright, when you're happy with this, you can just click the frame and click Edit, Delete All by Type, History. And there you go. You got a nice window framer. You can repeat the same steps for these smaller windows on the side here. As for the wings, I noticed that the center of the light thingy there on the wing isn't centered with the wing. So we can fix this. And if we look from the top view, they don't seem to be perfectly aligned. Right? So I'll begin with the first one here, which is the closest to being aligned. I'll actually try and go up here into my rotations and put everything at 0, which should align it if it was properly aligned to begin with. And it's slightly off, so I'm just going to move it in. I'm going to go to face mode. I'm going to double click and double click this one here and double click this. And from the top view, I'm going to go in and move it so that it's straight on. But as you can see, the actual entire thing is slightly crooked. So I'm going to try and rotate it a bit. Okay, and that's as close as I'll be able to get it here. Alright. Next thing I'm wondering here is when I clicked this, oh, it's a separate piece. Okay, so you don't need a separate piece, so if you want to, you can just press delete. And what you can do instead is go to your multi-cut tool up here, and then just hold down Control to add the edge loop. Then in vertex mode, or before this, I'll go to faces, double click, and I'll press this icon up here, which is the isolate select. So it'll actually hide everything else. I'm going to go to vertex, grab these, and then bring these downwards. So just to match the flatness of the reference. And there you go. If I go back, see, all part of the one piece. I might have to shrink this a little bit more as well. Alright, I'll delete the other two since I don't need them anymore. And I'm going to go into the top view here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press D on the keyboard. And then holding down X, I'll press the little circle here and I'll bring it to the middle. And I'll press D again to go back to object mode. I'm going to press Control D to do a duplicate. I'll move it. And now we have to split 360 by 3, right? So the first one is going to be at -120. You could also go the opposite way and go 120. And then I'm going to duplicate again, rotate it, and go to 240. And now you're guaranteed that all three of them are at the exact same distance from one another and from the rocket. And this is going to make a perfect rocket for you. And then the last thing is that these edges, these vertex, are essentially like the atom, right? So you'd never want to have something that's as thin as an atom in 3D. So we're just going to add a little thickness to it. So I'm going to click on the edge, or double click to select the entire edge loop. And then I'm just going to click the bevel tool up here. I'm going to drop the fragment to 0.1. And this is going to at least give me that little thickness there around the thruster. And besides that, I think that's it. The next step for you will be to do the bolts. And the easiest way to do this is create your bolts. I'd recommend doing something a little nicer than just a cylinder. go ahead, rotate, move, place it wherever you want. Make sure that it does follow the curvature of the rocket. That is one of the main issues I've seen with a lot of the rockets I received. All right. This one is way too big compared to the reference. Okay. Now let's go with that for now. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go into the top view again. Press D on the keyboard. Hold X. Drag the little yellow circle. Let go. Press D again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the rotation, right, or shortcut E on the keyboard, and then press Shift D to bring it to the next spot. This is where you're going to have to figure out what interval they're at. I'm just going to go at whatever for now, and I'm going to press Control D a couple of times. Right. Now I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to make sure that the distance that it penetrates the rocket is equal all around. And it's looking pretty good. So this is one way of doing it. The other way is to actually create all of the bolts on one side, right? So make sure that all of them are perfect on one column of bolts. Again, making sure that they follow the rocket's body and they're at the same distance inside the rocket. And this is going to be a faster way of doing things. I will delete these. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this, press Control and click the rocket just to unselect the rocket body. So once you have all of those, all the way to the bottom of the rocket, what you can do is click Combine, and then do the same trick from the top view and rotate all of them at the same time. This way, instead of doing them one by one, you'll be able to do an entire column at the same time, at once. All right. Just make sure that you don't have any of the bolts inside the windows anywhere or going through the wings. Just go one by one afterwards to make sure that everything is nice. And I think that's pretty much it. Good job on the rocket. Keep it up. Thank you. Bye-bye.